Good morning, guys. My name is Angela and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to just we're going to have a bit of a chat today, I think. There's a few things to catch up on. I'm going to make some scones, however you want to pronounce them. They're actually a recipe I came across a while ago, very different to the scones that I grew up with that are butter scones. These are made with cream and they were really nice. I think these are more Americanized. But I'm going to make some scones because I feel like having a bit of a morning tea treat while I'm reading a book. Sometimes sometimes you just feel like you need that. So I'm going to make some scones and then we're going to sit down and have a chat. I want to talk with you about some of my reading goals, like what are the things that I want to achieve out of the reading that I'm doing this year. I want to be quite purposeful because I do find that sometimes I get stuck in a rut and I'll get stuck in the same genre or the same author. And I really want to make sure I'm being diverse with what I'm reading. So I'm going to take you through a few of those. And then over the last month, I've just been picking up books at random in bookstores. I've got into a number over the last month and I wanted to just share a few of those with you. So we've got some scones, some bookish chats, and some reading goals for 2024. Hey guys, so I have my scones. They turned up really, really well. there is a step in the recipe where you're supposed to put the scones in the freezer to chill them down before you put them in the oven, and that should help them rise a little bit. I forgot to do that, but they still, I think they're excellent still. I would be happy to serve them to other people. So I have a fresh cup of tea, I have some scones, and I'm ready to get in some reading this afternoon. But firstly, like I mentioned, I wanted to share with you some of my reading goals for 2024 and also some new books that have found their way into my home. So firstly, these goals I have for reading, they're really more like guidelines. If anything, my goal is just to constantly read, just to read something every day and to make that my default instead of scrolling or watching TV is to read. So if I do that every day, I'll be happy. But the other things that I wanted to accomplish was to get out of my comfort zone a little bit and try and find authors and stories that are different to my own life, my own world. It's very easy to, reading should be comfortable. You should have some comfort reads in there, but I do feel that part of why I read is to be empathetic and to learn about other people and other cultures. So I do want to read books from other languages that have been translated. I do want to read books from different cultures, different countries, and I think that's probably something that will be in the forefront whenever I decide whether to purchase a book. The other thing I really want to do is have a mix of fiction and non-fiction, which I tend to. It's not like I'm trying to strive for a specific quota, but the non-fiction, I definitely want to include some edifying books in there, books that are self-improvement or devotional, things like that. And again, those are things that I could have on my bedside table, or maybe it could be an audiobook that I pop on when I'm driving. And I really feel that those edifying books are something really important. And part of that process is last year, I think it might have been early last year, I started a reading journal almost. I guess if I was reading a book, I would make a note of a particular passage that really jumped out at me. And then I would write that down at some point in this small notebook. And I really did enjoy that. And I don't know, I think I just stopped because it was a bit of work, but I really did like it. And it helped me to retain information. So for example, I talked about a book recently called The Dry by Jane Harper. And I remember reading the book and I wrote this down. And I think that's why I remember this particular passage. The passage was about how Aaron kept people at a distance and he collected acquaintances rather than friends. And just that little phrase kind of stuck with me and I wrote it down. And if I hadn't written it down, I probably would not remember it. And I feel like there's something in that I need to get back to. So when I read a book now, if there's something in there, I'll take a picture of it and I'll have that to reference later. I don't like using I don't want to use the tabs. It just starts to feel a bit like work when you're, bringing stationery and marking up books. But sometimes if I'm reading a book, I don't mind underlining. Really depends on the type of book. But it's more about how do I know where that was? Where did I underline it? So if I just take a photo of it, it helps. But I do think that's something that maybe I'll do this year. It really did add some value, I think, to my reading routine last year. The next thing I really want to achieve this year is to read a little more poetry. And this is probably something that is not like saying I want to read X amount of books of poetry. It's reading a little bit often. I think poems, you can just dip into it and read a little bit in the morning or something at night. And the lyrical nature of words is something that really interests me. I've always been, when it comes to things like songwriting and lyrics, the intelligence that comes along with being able to turn a phrase and a rhyme is something that intrigues me. So I want to read a little more poetry, and I do have some on my shelf already, some Mary Oliver. I got a beautiful book of poetry from Shakespeare and Company when I was in Paris late last year. They collated a book of poems about Paris, so that's something else. And there's a few books I've read recently that have had just a small amount of poetry in it, just as part of the story. So I think that's something else that I would like to do. I also don't want to get hung up if I don't finish a book. I do feel guilty. I think I feel guilty because I've already invested a lot of time, and then I get to a point where I'm like, this is not fun. I just don't want to read this anymore. But I feel like because I have invested the time, I have to see it through. Life's much too short for me to get hung up on that. And I have to appreciate that not every book is meant for me. You know, there are some books that are better suited to you than there are to me, and vice versa. And I I definitely want to feel less guilty if I don't finish a book, and it's not a bad stain. It's just what it is, and I can just move on to the next book. Something else that I think most people can probably relate to is that I want to read more than I scroll or watch TV. And I don't watch a ton of TV, but most of the time I'm rewatching stuff that I've already seen. So why not read a book? And I think I need to be okay with that and just turn off the television and just, get into a book in the evening. At the moment, my favorite time to read is in the morning. So that's usually, I'll just put on like a playlist or something and sit down and read with a cuppa for maybe an hour or so, depending on what the book's like and what my day's looking like. But when it comes to the evening, there's just something, it's very comfortable to just sit and veg and scroll with the TV show going. So I think I want to be more disciplined in that area. So let's move on to some books that I've gotten recently. They're a mix of books. They're just some that I've picked up here and there in bookstores over the last few weeks. And the first one is The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes by Arthur Conan Doyle. This is a book of short stories. And I read The Hound of the Baskervilles last year, and I really enjoyed it. It was a very slight read, very slim, but I did enjoy it. I think I like Sherlock Holmes and Watson as characters, so I think I'll like this. It's a selection, I think, of about 10 or 12 short stories. So that's something that I'm probably going to hold over until autumn, maybe, to read. Sherlock Holmes wandering around in the fog of London feels like an autumn read to me. My next book is definitely something for summer. It is Uncle Paul by Celia Fremlin. And this is a murder mystery. It's set in a seaside town, and I've heard really good things about this one. It is older. It was published in 1959, so it is much older, but I've heard good things about it. It sounds like a good cozy read for summer, something maybe on a hot summer's day. I could get through this, in a couple of days. Next one is Save Me the Waltz by Zelda Fitzgerald. And I love F. Scott Fitzgerald, and I have read a biography on Zelda Fitzgerald. I think it was called Z, and she's a fascinating character in history, and I really do wonder how much she learned from F. Scott Fitzgerald, how much he learned from her. Were they each other's muses? So this was her one and only novel, to my knowledge. So that's something that I think will be a lot of fun, take me back to the flapper age. I also have a non-fiction, which is Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. This has been on my want to read list for a long time, but I've just never picked it up. So I saw it, I got it, I'm ready to read it. This book is based on a series of lectures that was held on the BBC around, I'm not sure, during World War II or after. And so those lectures were put into a book. It's essentially an introduction to the Christian faith from C.S. Lewis, and it's got to be a bestseller for a reason. So I'm looking forward to getting into that. Then I also have another one from Elena Ferranti, which is My Brilliant Friend. This one is the first of her. She's got a series of 4 books, I think, set in Naples. I'm not sure if that's the only connection between the books or if the people are also interconnected. But this one is about friendship, 2 young girls in Naples. I'm looking forward to it. Her writing is really beautiful, and I think this will be another late summer read. And then this one I picked up just on a whim. It's one of those books where it just captivated me, which is why I love going into a physical bookstore so much, because you see things that you may not experience online. And it's called When I Sing Mountains Dance, and it's by Irene Sola. So it's translated from Spanish into English, and it's a very slight book again, but the title and the cover captivated me. I thought that looks dreamy, it looks magical. And the story sounds very interesting. I'll read it for you quickly. High in the mountains, Dominic is struck by lightning while out foraging. He and his family, his wife Sia and their children Mia and Hilary, grew up wild on the hulking summits of the Pyrenees. But the land is not theirs. It belongs to those who have long called the mountain their home. Chanterelle mushrooms and roe deer, the ghosts of Spain's civil war, and the clouds that top these perilous climbs. As the years tumble by after Dominic's death, these inhabitants come to bear witness to the tragedies that befall the family he leaves behind. Looking forward to it. I do love some nature writing, and I mean, it belongs to chanterelle mushrooms and roe deer. That's pretty much sold. So, and I think there's a little bit of poetry in here too, but that's definitely something that will be very interesting, and it's totally out of my wheelhouse. I'm taking a step out of my comfort zone. So I don't think that's going to be this intense, but it sounds dreamy and magical and a little bit otherworldly. So those are some books that I've gotten recently. I'm going to go pick up my current book, which is, I'm reading Northwoods at the moment, which is wonderful. I'm really enjoying it. And I'm going to go have a scone, maybe another one, and enjoy the rest of my weekend. So I thank you for joining me. Thank you for commenting. I really appreciate it. You've made me feel so welcome here, and I look forward to hopefully adding some value into your day. So have a wonderful weekend, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.